that you're probably one of the sharper individuals in the room. Maybe you are a C-suite executive, maybe you're a manager or a director, and you found yourself where you're in the company of some amazing individuals, but there's something that's missing there. And in this video, I want to share with you, if you found yourself in a situation where you have started to notice that you may be the sharpest individual or the sharpest leader in the room, how do you navigate that without coming across as being arrogant or rude to other people when you become frustrated? We're going to talk about that today. Now, today is Q&A on Friday, and if you have any questions specifically, you're more than welcome to ask them to me. This will be a bit of a shorter live. If you have questions specifically, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll give you some insight on how to resolve some of those issues. If you're new to me, welcome, welcome. And if you're one of my absolutely amazing subscribers, welcome back, friend. This channel heavily focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. Regardless of your role in leadership, if you can master how you are able to display yourself when you're under pressure, it will automatically help you to be able to do a lot of amazing things, be in a position to have an executive presence, negotiate your salary, be more persuasive, be more influential, all of the amazing things that we want to do as leaders. But you want to subscribe to this channel in order to do that. Now, if you want some direct support, you're welcome to contact me at exciteexcellence.org. There's only but so much I can do with you live here on YouTube in front of the world. Sometimes you just have to get some customized support from myself to help you go to that next level. Now, if you found yourself in that situation where you feel as if you're the sharpest one in the room, number one, put it in the comments below. So we gotta know what's going on, we can talk about it. But let me give you a couple things that have helped a lot of my clients and helped me myself when I found myself in those situations. Number one is recognizing that you are the sharpest person in the room means that when your group as a whole, and it doesn't mean anything negative against your coworkers or the people you're working with, your associates, etc. It just means that there's a certain amount of knowledge or experience that you have gained that has surpassed everybody else that's in the room. And that is okay. The first strategy I would share with you in this situation when this happens is to still continue to be yourself. Oftentimes what happens when people have gained an extensive amount of knowledge in a specific discipline, they tend to go a little bit more into arrogant mode. How many of you know people that go into arrogant mode in your leadership role? Let me know in the comments below. So arrogant mode is something that happens often. Thank you for the heart emojis. And that's something I want you not to do. So still be yourself, still be your authentic self. Don't act any different. Don't act as if, oh, I have all the answers. You don't want to be that way specifically. All right, I want to say hello to Cat 23rd. High five, Cat. Good to see you, friend. Cat says hello, dark, and a heart. Hope you all are doing well today. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today and what questions you have as it relates to being the sharpest person in the room. This is a live Q&A. I will be live just a short amount of time today. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them to me as quickly as you can. And if you are watching the replay, you're always welcome to put it in the comments below. All right, I want to say hello to Sean X8J. Hello, Sean. How you doing today? And Kat gives a high five back. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. I appreciate you. Continue being yourself. When you know you're the sharpest person in the room and you know you have more experience or just more expertise than everybody else, still be yourself. Don't be the person that tends to be a bit more arrogant or somewhat boast about themselves. We talked about this a lot yesterday in our live. I shared with you an example of someone I've actually worked with that boasted and bragged about themselves specifically. And so that may be a live you want to take a look at as it relates to developing your executive presence. Chaz Man of Culture asked a really great question yesterday, and we really dived deep into how to read people. So it's definitely a live you may want to check out. Now, another strategy I want to share with you when you found yourself to be the sharpest person in the room, remember, you want to still continue to be yourself. Still be yourself. Do not act any differently. But the next part that I want to share with you in terms of a strategy is very, very important. So outside of being yourself, make sure that you are able to add input, but in a way that allows you to be the person that leads the group. Now, a lot of times what happens is when people find themselves in situations where they are the sharpest people in the room, they become very stunted in their growth of their profession because they're not around other people that are perhaps at a higher level that help them to elevate. When this happens, you can still be the leader, be the person that sees the big picture, that is able to share your knowledge and your expertise in a way that still brings the group together, even though you're the sharpest one, but that still brings the group together as a whole, but can help them to think of the big picture and think of what are some of the long-term impacts that we may have. If you know you're the sharpest one in the room, that is your responsibility as a leader to try to lead the group as best as you can. Now, I'm going to go into my third strategy in just a moment, but let me go to the chat really quickly. Cat 23 says, watching from LA. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for letting me know that, Cat. I appreciate you. And for those of you watching the live stream today, let me know where you're joining from. We have Cat 23rd from LA. Let me know where you're joining from in the big, beautiful world today. And if you've ever found yourself in a situation where you were the sharpest person in the room as a leader, put in the comments below. Let's talk about it today. Thank you for the heart emojis. I appreciate that. Now, we've talked about 2 strategies so far. How to navigate these situations when you're the sharpest person in the room. Number 1, continue to be yourself. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Number 2, make sure that you are being the leader and you're leading the group because you are at a higher level in terms of how you're thinking. But then number 3, this one's very important, is to be strategic with your moves as a leader. Now, what I've seen happen, and this has actually happened to me many years ago, when I was in a senior executive role and I started to notice that I was the sharpest one in the room, I started to become a bit complacent in terms of what I was doing. And I didn't really stretch myself to think about, well, where do I see myself in the next few years? What do I want to do? How in the world can I be a bit more strategic in terms of my thought processes so that I'm not having my growth stunted? And for many, many years, I didn't do that. I did not do that. And I stayed in a role a lot longer than what I should have. I should have been doing a lot more of my business at that time because I was building both at the same time. And I didn't. This is the reason why when you find yourself in that situation, you may love your organization, you may love what you do, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you love where you are and what you're doing, that's great. But you should always remember that if you stay complacent and you become stagnated in your career, it will impact you later on down the road. Now, it doesn't mean you need to just type up your resignation letter and say, I'm the sharpest person in the room and I'm not growing here, therefore I'm leaving. You don't need to do that. But you do need to think about, okay, I noticed that this is happening. Who exactly do I need to start centering myself around to help me? Now, if you happen to be in a situation where you love where you're at, you love your job, you love your business, you love who you're working with, etc., then you'll have to start working on who you are interacting with outside of business that can help you to continue to develop and grow. But there is going to come a point in time where even your interactions outside are going to help you to grow. But if it's something professionally that you're really trying to work on and you still feel like you're just at a cap because everybody else is just not thinking at your level, it will start to affect you in a very negative way. I've seen leaders become very frustrated. You see that their passion for the role is completely gone and they just don't want to do it anymore. A lot of it is because at one point in time, they were the sharpest person in the room. They were leading the group and they felt like they were not growing. And what happens is they just are unhappy. Let me go to the chat really quickly. Cat 23 says, I don't mean to boast, but I feel like I'm always the sharpest person in the room. Cat, more than likely you probably are, and that's not a boast at all. And that's really the purpose of this live specifically because these situations really do happen. This is a very high stakes, high pressure situation because when you find yourself as that person that is the sharpest person in the room, how do you navigate that? How a lot of times people just say, well, just stay with it. Just stay with it. But I'm sharing with you, I've made those mistakes where I've stayed with it a little too long. And I wish that I would not have. I wish that someone would have told me, when these situations happen, you're going to have to, if you have to stay in your role, maybe you have responsibilities, you have kids, you have family, you have loved ones, and you have to stay in this role, then you have to start growing yourself outside of the role to help meet things in the middle to where you still feel like you're growing. Because when you're the sharpest one, you're leading the group, but then who is helping you to lead? Who is helping you to continue to grow? That's where people become very frustrated. And so, Kat, I appreciate you mentioning that so much. And I know you are the sharpest person in the room majority of the time, as you mentioned. You feel like you're always the sharpest one in the room. Okay, Kat 2030 says, quick-wittedness, think on your feet, deliver precise responses, and adapt instantly. All of the things that Kat mentioned, I appreciate you so much, friend, for mentioning those. All of those character traits that Kat mentioned are incredibly important when you are transitioning to not only an executive role. So this isn't only for individuals that are at a point where they're maybe wanting to transition to a senior VP role, or they're trying to stay in a corporate role, whether they're in corporate America or they're in another country where they have just a corporate structure. These are the basic skills you need to be able to communicate under pressure. And I appreciate Kat so much for mentioning those, because your ability to think on your feet is critically important. Now, if you happen to be someone that's struggling with thinking on your feet, perhaps you're a woman in leadership, or maybe you're working in an organization and you see where your team members are really struggling with this, then you're always welcome to reach out to me at exciteexcellence.org. There are multiple ways that I can help you be able to think a bit faster when you are under pressure. I will say this, we do talk about this at length on the channel, and I do give several strategies that I share with my clients in a one-on-one setting to help them be able to think better on their feet. So there's a lot of information here. Feel free to take a look at the playlist that I've created on the channel. I've created a couple. There's a playlist on executive presence mastery, on high stakes communication, the fundamentals, leading and managing pushback. There's a lot of things that can help you, but as Kat mentioned, those skills specifically will help you tremendously. Okay, Kat says, appreciate you, Doc. Heart in 100, thank you so much. Kat also mentions adaptability, handle curveballs with creative solutions. So Kat, that's fantastic, and I appreciate you mentioning that. Want to say, let's see what's going on here. So when it comes to being able to be a bit more adaptable and being able to make those changes specifically, you have to do it pretty quick, and you have to think creatively. And one of the things that people tend to struggle with a lot is that when they're in the moment and they're under pressure and they're trying to think of, how do I respond? What am I supposed to say? They go into panic mode. And this is what I help my clients to not do. But they go into panic mode because they're thinking, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what to say. I don't know what we're doing. And they just freeze. That's where the freeze comes from. I don't want you to freeze. Whether you're in public, you're on maybe on social media, maybe you're on a television program, maybe you're on the news, whatever. I don't want you to freeze. And that happens often. Now, one of the things I do want to say specifically is that when this happens, it's okay for you to know that the best way for you to turn a situation around is to think about what's the problem, what's the solution. If you can think of what the solution is pretty quickly, it will help you to maybe think about things a little bit more in a creative way and be open to that specifically. All right, let me see what Teddy Bear is talking about. Let's see, Teddy Bear, I'm not sure. If you're talking about me getting a real job, obviously you've not ever been on this channel before. So Teddy Bear says, tell me you have never worked a real life job without telling me. Word salad master. Okay. Well, Teddy, you said get a real job. So Teddy, I'm gonna say this. I believe you are asking me to explain something to you. I believe that's what you're saying. So I'm not gonna take it as I normally would, because typically if you were taking it in a different direction, I would immediately block you from the channel because I don't deal with nonsense like that. But it seems like you're asking a question. I hope that you are, and you're talking about get a real job. I hope you're not referring to me specifically. It seems like you have maybe some context you're talking about, but just know that make another comment like that, you're not going to be on this channel. I'm here to change people's lives and help them communicate at an exceptionally high level than their peers. And the way that I do that is by helping people to learn how to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure as leaders. Okay, Kat 23 says, pattern recognition. Train yourself to spot recurring dynamics in conversations, business, or social settings. Kat, once again, fantastic insight that you're sharing as always. Pattern recognition goes into reading people. How many of you feel comfortable in terms of how to read people? Put in the comments below. Let's talk about it. The reason why I mention that and why I want to really emphasize what Kat is saying is that oftentimes, thank you for the heart emojis, friends, that pattern recognition is a very, very important part of reading people. We talked about this at length yesterday with Chaz Man of Culture. You absolutely want to watch that video. It was a little bit later in the video when we start to have that dialogue, but I go into detail in terms of what I have found to be ways that people tend to communicate themselves in a verbal or in a nonverbal way. And as Kat mentioned, being able to recognize patterns will help you to start learning how to read people. For example, if you're having a conversation with someone and you know this person typically appears to be very happy, maybe they're always smiling or they always tend to be in a more jovial mood, and one day you happen to have a conversation with them and you see their facial expressions are showing something completely different. Perhaps this person is looking sad. Maybe this person is looking frustrated. Maybe they are doing things showing that they're frustrated. Maybe they're moving pens and papers around, not in a gentle way, but maybe they're just pushing things around, just pushing them around. That is a great way to recognize someone's patterns in terms of what do they normally do and how are they doing things differently right now. When you can be able to start reading people and start noticing those patterns that Kat mentioned, it will help you tremendously to be able to change the direction of your message based on what's going on. If you are planning, and this has happened to me before, and let me know if you all have experienced this as leaders too. You may be having a difficult conversation or need to have a difficult conversation with someone about random things. It could be a situation that happened. It could be something with performance. It could be a restructuring that you are doing in your organization. There's so many difficult conversations. And if you're struggling with difficult conversations, you definitely want to take a look at a couple of my videos that talk about how to have difficult conversations. That is one of my specialties here. But if you have a difficult conversation, one of the things you have to do is be mindful of what this person is showing you. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Sometimes you just have to have that conversation. It doesn't matter if they're happy, sad. This is urgent and I have to take care of it now. However, you should always approach it from a place of empathy, regardless of what they have going on in their lives. And I share with you on this channel my step-by-step approach that I have to managing difficult conversations so that they're not so difficult. I am telling you, if you follow this, what I share with you in a lot of my videos, it will help you to be the master of difficult conversations. There's no way you can be in a situation and have a difficult conversation that doesn't go well if you follow what I'm telling you to do in other my videos. I won't necessarily go into a ton of detail of it now, but take a look at a couple of videos that talk about having difficult conversations. And if it's something you want me to go into more detail on via live, I'm more than happy to talk about a very challenging topic just like that. But just know that even if someone is presenting themselves as a way where they're not presenting themselves, or you're recognizing the patterns are normally not the same as they normally would be, then you want to be mindful of your message and how you say it, when you say it. You don't want to be that person where, let's say the person you're speaking with is having a really bad day, things are rough, maybe something's going on personally, and then you don't want to be the person that has a really bad day, things are rough, you have things going on personally as well, and then when you have a conversation, it's just like, boom, everybody's just mad, angry, upset. You don't want to do that. So being able to pay attention to people's patterns, that goes not only for you being the leader, but for people to be monitoring you as well, to know that I may need to change this conversation. Maybe I don't need to talk about this today. Maybe it's something that can wait. Maybe it's not. And if it's a situation that can't wait, then there's just a way you have that conversation. Okay. Cat 2030 says, I use journaling to refine my thinking and track growth. That's fantastic. And I have heard so many people speak very highly of journaling. And Kat, I appreciate you mentioning that, because I know a lot of people that watch the replay would love to hear that as well. Journaling is very, very insightful. Everybody processes growth differently. So if Kat uses journaling, I have heard journaling works very well. I've seen how it does work very well with a lot of my clients. That's how they self-reflect. Everybody has their own way of reflecting. Now, I would like to know from you, what are some ways that you reflect and track your growth? What do you do specifically? Put in the comments below so we can talk about it. Kat's mentioned about journaling specifically. For myself, even though I am an executive coach and a consultant, I work with my own coach to help me to reflect, and I take notes. I'm a note taker, and that's something that I do for me. And there's a connection between how we're thinking of situations and when we write them down and what we remember. I'm a writer, so I tend to take notes and write things very quickly in terms of what do I need to remember about a conversation, or maybe something I'm doing specifically as it relates to my growth and how I'm advancing, etc. But the key thing that Kat mentioned, I'm referring to, is to take time to reflect. And this is one of the reasons why whenever you work with an executive coach, it is one of the most transformative experiences that you will have in your life, because it is the opportunity. And I tell my clients this all the time. When you are working with a coach, this is like your spa day. And if you've ever been to a spa, you don't have to necessarily understand the spa, but the purpose of it is to help you to relax and help you to really dive deep. Now, in a spa setting, you're just relaxing, but in an executive coaching setting, we're working. But we're working in a very, very productive way to help you to reflect on what it is that you're working on. What are some of the challenges you're facing? Why are you facing those challenges, and how you can move forward? It is not a therapy session. We do not focus on the negative. We do not focus on the past. We are constantly focusing in on how can we help you to move forward. Now, if this sounds of interest to you, then you're always welcome to contact me for an executive strategy session. Come to me with whatever issue you have, and we will have a very, 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 very good session to help you be able to move forward. There's a lot that goes into it, so contact me if you have any questions about it specifically. Okay, Cat 23rd says, strategic silence. Sometimes the sharpest move is to hold back, letting others reveal themselves before you strike with clarity. High five, Cat. You know, specifically for me, I absolutely love that, because this is one of the ways that you can start reading people and learning how to respond. I actually just had a call with a client of mine that was doing an executive strategy session, and she had a bit of a challenging situation she was navigating professionally. And one of the things that I told her to do specifically when it came down to a conversation she was having or was going to have again, that what I recommend for you to do is to be silent and let the other person speak first. Because if you can let the other person speak first, and I say this because most people, and thank you for the heart emojis, most people are not trained to communicate at the level that I'm sharing with you here on this channel. They are going to be your more average communicators. When you are someone that communicates at an exceptional level, you think of things a little bit differently. Therefore, most of the time people communicate in an average way. And if you allow that person to tell you, and it's maybe a bit of an unfair advantage, but this is just what you do when you start to elevate. You use your tools and your skills to help you to become better. But let the person speak, because more than likely, if it's a difficult conversation, they probably haven't been trained to do it the way I share with them to do. And they're probably just going to tell you whatever's on their mind, the first thing on their mind. And you can use that information to process it and determine, what is the best way for me to respond? Do I need to be silent, as Kat mentioned? Do I need to say something immediately? Majority of the time, if you just let the person talk, they will tell you what you need to know. Not only verbally, but they will also tell you with their facial expressions, with their body language, and how they're communicating. This is so incredibly important, and silence is something we talk about a lot on the channel. If you are struggling with feeling comfortable with silence, there's a certain technique I do with my clients in a one-on-one setting to help them be more comfortable with that dead space that can sometimes feel very awkward. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about that. Okay, Cat 23rd gives me a high five. Cat 23rd says, question, what habits separate sharp thinkers from average ones? That's a fantastic question. We'll talk about that. Christopher Caron, 1349. Hello, welcome, welcome. going back to Kat's question. Kat's question is, what habits separate sharp thinkers from average ones? There's a lot. There's a lot that we can unpack there, but we'll go over a couple things to get you started. When it comes to being able to think in a sharp way, a lot of it has to do with preparation. And we talk about this a lot on my channel. And the reason I say this is because when I was doing a lot with policies, and I still read legislation and stuff like that in the role I am right now, but a lot of times you have to, in the policy world, like if you're writing laws and writing pieces of legislation and you're introducing language to bills, etc., you have to know a little bit about a lot. And in order for you to present yourself, Kat, as a very, very sharp thinker, there has to be this knowledge base in your head that's always on the ready, always ready to talk about something. And that's one of the reasons why I really heavily focus on knowing some statistics, knowing some numbers. You don't have to memorize everything, but especially for your industry specifically, whatever industry you're in, as it relates to healthcare, science, tech, or etc. But knowing some relevant data in your industry will allow you to come across as someone that is sharp. Why? Because most people, when they are speaking or being asked a question, they may stumble. They will say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I have no idea, I'm not familiar with that, and all of those things. But if you can, instead of saying, I don't know, rephrase it and say what you actually do know, and have some data points in the back of your mind, then you will appear as if someone that can think on their feet. And most of the time when people are able to think on their feet, then they are automatically categorized into someone that is a sharp thinker. So having data, meaning that you have to learn all the time, lifelong learning, instead of just scrolling on social media and maybe watching things that might not necessarily benefit you. We all have to take breaks sometimes, okay? Everybody has to take a break and watch silly things. That's just us as humans. You can't be just constant work mode all the time. But try to take in insights in things that are relevant to your career. I mentioned to you all once before, I had a conversation earlier this year with a multimillionaire, and we were talking just about the economy and etc. And I had just looked at the jobs report, and I let that person know there was 180,000 jobs that were lost in this particular month earlier this year. Now that was surprising to the person I spoke with, and that automatically lifted me up as someone that is able to be a sharp thinker because I was able to bring in some stats. So number one, Kat, is you want to think ahead. You want to plan ahead and continuously be learning. You never know when you may need to use that information, even if it's an article, even if something you're just glancing at and passing, or you just read the title of the article. You could say, oh, I noticed that there was this change that's happening in an article I was reviewing. It automatically shows you as being sharp. The next portion of that is to be able to articulate it, be able to say it in a way to where it sounds like it's confident and something that makes sense, not in a way to where it's completely confusing, where you're mixing two different stats together and making your own data. You don't want to do that. I would say those are really the two main areas of sharp thinking. There's a lot more we can go into, but if I had anything that I would share with you as starters, always be constantly learning, because that data, you never know when you're going to need it. And if you are in your setting, in your profession specifically, you should be very much in tune with your setting, in your profession, in your industry, so that you can be able to talk about those things. This is why you look at different news publications. You may look at different articles. You may look at different social media accounts that are perhaps managed by your organization or your industry. That's how you start gathering data, and then being able to actually articulate it is the next part. If you're stumbling, if you are hesitating in what you're saying, automatically it's not going to come across as someone that is a sharp thinker. The average people will do the things I shared with you. I don't know, I'm not sure, I have no idea, I don't think so, and they will have no data. They will have no data to reference. They will say, I don't know anything. I had a conversation with a client a long time ago where we went through the same scenarios. The constant response was, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And I had to help her reframe and think of it in a different way to say, well, what do you know? Let's start with that first instead of immediately saying, I don't know. Most of the time when people do that, it's a defense mechanism. It's almost a way of your mind saying, there's too much information coming at me right now. Okay, I'm done. And just completely shut down because you are thinking, I can't process this. I'm not going to try to process this. This is too hard. This is too complicated. I'm just going to say I don't know. And then that's where the whole process goes. Hope that gives you some insight to consider. But we could definitely go more into that. Okay, Cat23, thank you for the heart emoji, says, question number 2. What's the fastest way to sharpen presence in a room full of strong personalities? Ooh, Cat, this is a fantastic question. There's a lot that goes into that. Let's see how we can break it down in a short way. Cat, these are some really great questions as you always have. So let me do a screenshot really quickly because the questions you have definitely could have their own live entire live devoted to them or pre-recorded, because those are some really great questions. As always, Kat, I appreciate you. When you're in a room with strong personalities, the best thing I can say, there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm going to highlight a couple things quickly. One of the things is that you have to plan ahead. And I know I talk about planning ahead, reading ahead, doing all these things. This is how you become very influential. You have to do your homework on people and know exactly what's going on with them. If you know you're in a room full of strong personalities, then make sure that you have some relationships with the people in the room. Even if everyone has a very strong personality, you as an individual may have one also, but as long as there's some communication that you have with the other people outside of the room, meaning that there's some relationship, some professional relationship that is being developed there, or perhaps a partnership or etc. This always helps you when you're in the room with strong personalities. Why? Because when you're in a room with strong personalities and people do not know you, or they have not spoken to you or had conversations with you, they will just jump on you in a way, not in a physical way, but they will jump on you in terms of asking you questions that are going to make you feel like you are this big in a room full of strong personalities. But if you build relationships with people, and I know this is probably a little different than what people would think I would say, but if you're building relationships behind the scenes, when you get in the room with strong personalities, people start to recognize you as someone that has value to bring to the conversation, and they will tend to just relax a little bit with you. They won't necessarily try to go in with you. I have seen this happen many times as a senior executive. I've seen people come in, do presentations about things, and they don't have or have not built relationships with those strong personalities in the room, and they've just been asked question after question after question after question, and it doesn't look good. So building relationships behind the scenes is the number one thing I would do. This is how you start to influence people. Now, the next thing that I would recommend to do when you have those strong personalities, outside of building relationships as best you can, find out how you can support each other's departments and execute on it. So not being the person that likes to talk and say, oh, we can do this, oh, we can do that. Be the person that is actually the executioner. This is the reason why people that can execute are the people that will stand out. I just had a conversation with someone last week that talked about how wonderful an individual was, but they struggle with executing. You can be great, you can be nice, you can be polite, but if you can't execute on what you say, this is the fastest way to lose your executive presence. You have to be consistent in terms of what you say you're going to do. The next strategy I would share with you when you're in a room full of strong personalities is know a little bit about them. For example, when you're in that room, if there's anyone specifically that you believe, now I don't believe in sucking up to people or doing anything like that. Like, absolutely no. I would not tell anyone to do anything like that. I don't do that. But if you feel like there's something that they are genuinely doing that is very insightful, then compliment that person on it or mention it in front of the group if you're having a discussion. So having that conversation is very important too. Being able to identify the successes that the group as a whole is doing. So maybe the entire leader of the entire room of the strong personalities. If the fact that you all are working together, this is the reason why we're able to accomplish this goal, that goal, and etc. You're collectively complimenting the group as a whole. That's a really good way to work with strong personalities. Compliment them in what they're doing. Because remember, most of the time when you're in the room with strong personalities, these are going to be your individuals that are very ambitious, high achievers, just like many of you that are subscribed to my channel, and they're just used to saying, what's the goal? How can I accomplish it? Next, what's the goal? How can I accomplish it? Next. And they don't take the time to really reflect on themselves. So if you can bring that to the table and to the conversation when you're in that room of strong personalities, highlight something successful that they're doing as a whole, then the strong personalities will see you as someone that they can communicate with that is bringing value. These are definitely more of your advanced skills that I'm sharing with you that people really probably don't talk about that much. Another way to manage those strong personalities in a room is you have to become the strong personality. You have to be able to develop yourself in such a way that when you walk into a room, you carry your own executive presence, meaning that you're mindful of how you are speaking to people, you're being polite, but you're being very professional, your attire, how you're dressed. Appearances are not necessarily everything, but they play a factor into your executive presence. Are you going to go into into a room with strong personalities? Thank you for the heart emojis. With a sweatshirt or wrinkled pants? I surely hope not, because then you're not presenting yourself as a strong personality. This is important. So how you are presenting yourself is an important part of strong personalities. You basically need to develop a strong personality yourself. And how do you do that? Of course, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet. But one of the ways you do this is by really developing how you are presenting yourself and how you are communicating under pressure. Now, one of the things that I have learned that a lot of times appearance, believe it or not, plays a big factor in how people present themselves. I had a conversation with someone a couple months ago, and she's in a role where she is at an executive level role, and she'd mentioned specifically that being in this role, her attire is something that has prevented her from being able to really put her best foot forward. And I don't want you all to underestimate how your appearance is very, very important. You don't have to look perfect every single day, but take some time to make sure you look the way that you want to be perceived as. I think it's as simple as that. So building up that presence and then being able to communicate under pressure. That's another way. When you have strong personalities, most of the people that have strong personalities, they can probably communicate pretty well under pressure. Therefore, if you are struggling with communicating under pressure, definitely sign up for my high stakes communication intensive. It will completely change your life, and you will not worry about this or struggle with this as much anymore after we work together. But you want to make sure that you are able to communicate under pressure, because those people that have those very strong personalities they can communicate under pressure probably just fine. So you have to basically adapt yourself to being able to communicate at a higher level than your peers. Being able to have those conversations, communicating that way, your appearance, planning ahead, complimenting the group, or just a few strategies that you can do to be able to start being that person that is able to be comfortable in a room of strong personalities. There's so many more things that I can talk about specifically here, but those are a couple things at the very top of my mind that I would personally tell you if you were my client. These are some things we want to work on, but of course we have to do a lot more customized work to get you where you need to be. Okay, Cat 23 says, I remember walking in a room of people wearing formal, and I came in with street casuals because I wasn't told it was street attire. It was street attire. It was, okay, I know you changed that. So I think what I got from it, I know the message went away, that you were in an event, no one told you the dress attire, and when you go in, everybody was dressed in a formal way, I believe. I know the message disappeared, but if that's the case, anytime you go out, strict attire. Okay. Every time you go out, this is my rule of thumb. If you're, sorry, and I just kicked my light. Sorry about that. If you are going to, I want to say this in a way that I hope this resonates. If you are going anywhere, and you are at that point where you're trying to elevate yourself, you follow my content here, you subscribe to the channel, and you are communicating under pressure, you want to present yourself as put together as much as you can. If you're going out to any events, I would always dress, unless it's some type of black tie event where people are going to be wearing ball gowns and other type of dresses and etc., more of your dinner or evening dresses, then that's probably a little bit different. But for most of us, we're talking about professional events. I would always wear business casual or business all the time. I would lean a little bit more toward business if it's an event where I'm going to be in front of people I don't really know, or dressed really nice business in a business casual setting. I would always go in the more formal way. You will never be wrong in that, because there's a lot of people that go to events, they may be dressed up in a, maybe not in a as formal attire, but you can be the person that stands out. And that goes into when we go outside of the house, when we're going out to run errands. We don't have to necessarily all be dressed up all the time, but I would say one of the things, and I would say as an audience as a whole, as you are trying to elevate how you're communicating under pressure, how you are appearing and how comfortable you feel with what you have in your appearance is really important. So making sure that you are investing in yourself, investing in your attire in terms of what do you want to wear, how do you want to be perceived as in terms of a leader, and dressing the most appropriate way that you can in a very polished, professional way. Sometimes you don't get the memo, right? You don't get the memo, you don't know. I would say in those situations, always dress business casual or business attire. Maybe not business casual. I would always go more toward business. You would never go wrong. That's the same. It's somewhat of the same concept that I share with you when you have those situations where someone's saying something to you and you're mentally trying to process and you're going through your decision algorithm or your decision making tree. Is this response or statement being made to me? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it in between? So many of you that watch my channel, you know what I tell you to do. If it is positive, be polite. Excuse me. If it's negative, be very direct. If it's in between, be very direct. I would much rather you be direct than be overly polite to someone that may be saying something that's not exactly friendly. Same thing with your dress attire. If you don't know the event you're going to specifically, or not quite sure of the attire, always wear something that looks very put together as a person. So more of your business outfits. Do you necessarily have to wear a full suit? You may not have to, but as long as you're dressed really nice and you look very professional, that will always be a safe place to be, instead of wearing something that may not be as professional. Now, a lot of this comes down to just your specific attire. And once you are growing in your role, then you always can find out individuals that can cater custom outfits to you. There is a clothier here in South Florida. Her name is Danielle Tremblay. She's on LinkedIn. She specifically allows people to pick out clothing that they're interested in. They custom make it to you as a person. And of course, when you go to events or you just want to have a really nice suit, then it's custom made for you. Now that's that next level. That's that next level specifically that you will want to strive towards as you are elevating how you are communicating specifically as a leader. You want to dress the part, you want to look the part. You have to invest in yourself. And I know sometimes it's really hard, especially if you're a caretaker. I completely understand that. I have children as well. Or if you're taking care of someone else, or you're just busy as a student and you just got a lot going on, always take some time to invest in yourself, whether it's through education, whether it's through attire and etc. But sometimes attire is the one that people really struggle with, just because we just get into the swing of things. We get into a routine and we just think, oh, I don't need to change my clothes. I don't want to buy anything. I understand. I completely understand. But take a little bit of time for yourself. That'll help you find out have a couple pieces or some staples that you want to wear when you're going out somewhere specifically. So I hope that gives you some insight there. I know it was a very, 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 very long response, but these are the things that will help you to be able to manage and navigate those rooms when you have strong personalities, because everybody has to be put together. Now, you will have people that have strong personalities that look like they just woke up and just rolled out of the bed. I've seen that also. And they can do that. But you, as someone that's subscribed to the channel, can be the person that looks the part even though this other person may have a strong personality, may have a very high role in the organization, that doesn't mean that you have to look like you rolled out of the bed. You are trying to function at a higher level, and you're trying to present yourself in a different way. Some people can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just depends on what you want your style to be and how do you want to be perceived as. That's something that you have to internally figure out on your own. But ultimately, it comes down to, what do you want to be perceived as? If you want to be perceived as the very lax person, then a pair of shoes and a shirt will be fine. Let me give you an example. Thank you for the heart emojis. I did an interview, and this is years ago, where I was interviewing a doctor to work with me and my team. And I had a conversation with the doctor on the phone. And the doctor was coming to our location to do an in-person visit and etc. Now, this is still an interview. This person has not been hired. This is still an interview. This person came to the interview with literally a t-shirt on that was pulled out, wasn't tucked in. It was it looked like a linen dress shirt that you would wear if you're going to the beach. If you were just going to lay out on the beach all day. It was a linen shirt and blue jeans and some tennis shoes. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is still an interview. Why would you come to an interview looking like that? I do not understand. Now, that may have been the way that he wanted to be perceived as, but for me as a professional, I could never get past that. There was other issues that happened specifically, but how you present yourself is very, very important in terms of how strong personalities will interact with you. So I hope that gives you some insight. Okay, Cat 23 says, oops, sorry, probably about the message. No problem, Cat, it's all right. We've talked about a lot of things so far. So we talked a bit about being able to navigate those situations when you're the sharpest one in the room. Kat gave some really fantastic insights and some wonderful additional questions for us to dive into. Thank you for the heart emojis. To dive into specifically as it relates to this topic and being the sharp person in the room. So I appreciate you so much, Kat, for that. We've talked about a couple strategies to keep in mind, some additional things for you to consider as you're navigating these challenges, and how being able to start developing your executive presence, being able to communicate in those very high stakes, high pressure situations will help you to stand out when you are an individual that may be the sharpest person in the room. You don't have to brag about it and make it seem as if you're being very arrogant, but you do have to lead people, think strategically, plan out your next moves, make sure you're not stunting your growth. And if it's somewhere you just love and you want to be at, then take some time to develop yourself outside of your four walls of your organization that you're in, because at some point you're going to get really, really tired and get really, really frustrated. When you are at a place where you are the sharpest one in the room, remember, you are there to lead the group. But remember, you don't want to be the person that is stunting your growth too. So always keep that in mind. Please don't make the mistakes that I mentioned. I made it earlier in the live. I want you to be able to be more on top of it and not become too complacent in the roles that you're in. There's a couple things I'm working on, as many of you know. I'm having a lot of back-end things I'm working on my website specifically. You don't see it on your end right now, but I'm revamping a lot of things on the website. So as soon as that's released, I'll let you know. With that will come the ebook, because I'm making a landing page for it, the assessment, everything is done. It's just the tech side. So I appreciate your patience. It will be coming out here very soon. And if you have any questions or any situations specifically that you are dealing with, any complex situations where you're just not quite sure how to navigate it, please bring them to me. I'm here to help you any way that I can, regardless of where you are in the world. I want to help you as a leader get to where you need to be. If you're a woman in leadership and you're at the point where you know you need some customized support, then you're always welcome to contact me at exciteexcellence.org. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on any social media account, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't really use too much, but it's there. But I would say the best ways to contact me is either at my email, info@exciteexcellence.org, Instagram, LinkedIn, or comments on YouTube. I will definitely reach out to you and support you any way that I can. Let me know what topics you want to learn about. I appreciate IXO Multic coming up with a couple topics this week as it relates to literature and the art of leadership. I know that he focuses a bit more in terms of the classical side after he responded to me. So I'm looking forward to getting some of those insights from him so we can dive into that. And Cat 23rd has came up with some really great topics as well. And Olive Juice, Man of Culture, so many of you. I appreciate you all so much as subscribers. We're getting really close to 1,000. I believe right now we're around about 910 subscribers. So that's a really big milestone. And this community is all because of you, because you come to the community, you bring in some really great insight. And I really, truly am on the mission to build the largest high stakes, high pressure communication content library for leaders on planet Earth. And I cannot do it by myself. I need your help and your support to be able to give topics and ideas and challenges you're experiencing so that when people are looking at the channel years and years from now, they'll look back and say, you know what? I'm struggling with this too. I'm the sharpest person in the room and I don't know how to navigate it. They come to the channel to learn some information. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing weekend. I will see you on Monday and let me know how I can support you on your journey. Bye for now.